Hi, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade leaders. We're in January, getting ready for January 7th, 2018. This month we're talking about commitment. Don't you know, everybody's talking about commitment, but our way to talk about it with kids this month is to help them understand that there are certain disciplines that we put into our lives that help us to grow. And we want the kids to look at some different things that we think are essential, biblical disciplines that will help them to grow. And one is to learn to pray, one's to learn to talk about God wherever they are, and then also another is to be able to share their faith, to understand what that means. And now we realize every kid's not going to get there in our 4 weeks, so good news, we have the whole year to focus on this. I hope this helps you as a small group leader know that you don't have to get it all in one day, for one. And then also that we all realize it's a process and that we're all going to keep working together to make sure that the language is there in front of the kids to help them understand that they are the church. And because they are the church, then they can help grow in these ways. They don't have to wait for Miss Kristi. They don't have to wait for you as their small group leader. They don't have to wait for mom or dad to help them grow and figure out what their next step is. Everybody has a next step, and we can be working toward that next step. So we're going to give them some practical ways this month of things they can look at in the coming year. Your social activity this month is an activity called Just for Fun, and really it really is just for fun, so that you have a way to get to know everybody in your group, so they have a way to get to know you. And I encourage you to get some of your kids, especially some of them maybe that sit on the outskirts some, to participate in this activity in particular. I think our social activities are one of the most important things we do as small group leaders, because we set the tone in our social activity for what our group is going to be like for the rest of the day. So during this activity, a kid is going to cover up their mouth like this, where it's really hard for you to understand what they're saying. And then you're going to ask them a question, or you can have another kid in the group ask them a question. In the first week, I think I would ask, if you're the leader, I would ask the questions first. And everybody in the circle has to guess what that kid is answering. Did you understand that? As they're talking through their hand like this, where it's really, really muffled. So we want for kids to get the chance to just interact with each other, but also it's a good thing. It's supposed to be an object lesson at the same time. When we are muffled and when we are not listening clearly, or we're not reading the appropriate things, or we're not paying attention to the appropriate things, then we sometimes really miss what's in front of us and the instructions we need to get. And so you could use that as well to help some of your concrete thinkers want to understand, why exactly are we doing this? It's okay to still have fun. They're not big enough that they can't have fun. That it's going to be okay. And then our Bible story today is from the book of Matthew. One of my favorite parables that Jesus tells is at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. He is talking to everybody, and he kind of sums it all up. And he says to everybody, he says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." And I love this. Jesus is saying, you could have paid attention to everything I told you, and you may do it to the letter of the law. But until you build your house on my Father, then you are not building something that's going to stand. And so that's what we're hoping that kids this month in particular, but I would say for their whole lifetime. My wish for every kid in their whole lifetime is to realize what they're building off of. We can build off of friends. We could build off of those of us that are adults. We could build it off of work and our accomplishments and all of these other things. But all of that's going to fall At some point, all of that's going to fall because we didn't build it off of a relationship with God. And until our relationship with God is unwavering and there's nothing ever going to affect it, and it's not going to be affected by the outside anyway, it's just going to be our choice to decide whether or not God is my number one. When God's your number one, then all the other things can happen around you. And this still stands. God still stands right there in the middle of it with you. You have some discussion questions. And then I would like for you all as leaders to make sure you do one activity in your basket every week. This activity that I'm about to tell you, this is the activity I would choose for you to do this week. Please, 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 please. Our kids are not big enough that they are ready yet to have these big adult conversations. So please find ways to incorporate this activity in your discussion. You're welcome to try to push them and get them to do discussion better, but their brains aren't ready for this, especially coming back from a Christmas break. They're not ready to have that much focus time. They need the activity, and they need to have their synapses firing at all locations at all the time, so that all of this material that we're trying to teach them sinks in. We do these activities only because that's what their brain needs for us to help them understand the truths of the scriptures that we're presenting to them, okay? So it's not a waste of time. You're not wasting your time by doing it. Even if it sinks in with one, you have won today, leader. You have won if it sinks in with one. All right. You have a large piece of paper that you'll unroll, and up at the top of the paper in blue ink, you're going to write God, and at the bottom of the piece of paper in red, you're going to write me. And what we would like for you to do is ask some questions to your kids. Ask them, what are some ways that we communicate with each other? Get them to be really creative. What are ways that you see friends communicate with each other, parents communicate with each other, parents communicate with kids, teachers communicate with each other, teachers communicate with kids, their whole world, lay it all out there on the line. What are ways that we communicate with each other? And write those down on your paper. Then you're also going to write, what are some things that make it hard for people to hear? And they may have to think about this one, because sometimes it's not audible at all, but there are always things, like in our first activity, that are distractions that keep us from hearing exactly what it is that somebody is trying to tell us, or ways that they're trying to communicate with us. And then on your piece of paper, you're going to take some of those things that you said are ways that you communicate, and you're going to look at God and me, and what are some ways that God communicates with me, and then what are some ways that I choose to communicate with God, and anything in between, you're welcome to talk about that as well. This is why we plan the activity, is because it gives you a really good launching point to start a good conversation. If you don't have a place to start from, kids are not just going to jump in and start having the conversation that you expect them to have, okay? And then your guide gives you some really good ways that you can incorporate some scripture as you are looking at some of those ideas. You may have some kids that have some really off-the-wall ideas. That's okay. And you don't have to have the biblical answer right now. I encourage you, though, as you get those, if you need help, come to me. Or if you want to spend the rest of the week trying to figure out what are some scriptural references and ways that we can find that God communicates with us and that we can communicate with God. You have a Bible memory verse activity, and this activity is the same for the whole month. Each week you'll have a little different medium to do this activity with. And our memory verse this month is from 1 Timothy 4:8. I encourage you to read that with the kids. There's some instructions there on how you can help them find that in their Bible. Very important skill. This, again, is one of those stretching activities. Not everybody in your group is going to understand how to get in the Bible, where anything is, what this whole thing Timothy is, and that's okay. We want for them to just get the introduction of, this is what it takes to get into my Bible. This is where I'm going to find what God tells me and gives his instructions. And so get into the Bible, read the memory verse from there, and then you have pieces of paper and things to draw with in your bags. You're gonna pass out the piece of paper, and kids are supposed to draw a picture of something they think shows them about their commitment. And I would encourage them, because they're bigger, older kids, to get into that memory verse and see if they can find some words that they maybe don't understand, or that they do understand, that they want to concentrate on figuring out what that means for them this week. Then you have some bookmarks in your bags. Those bookmarks are to pass out to each of your kids. I'd write the Bible memory verse on the back of that bookmark for them, and then I'd also write Matthew 7 and the Bible story on the back of that bookmark for them. Encourage them to take that bookmark home, put it in a Bible at home. If they need a Bible, have them come find me. We've got Bibles that we give. We give different Bibles than we do for baptism, because we want the baptism Bibles to be special. But we do have Bibles. If a kid needs a Bible, they are welcome to a Bible at any time. And those Bibles, that way they can go home and figure out what the instructions are from God in their Bible with their bookmarks. And then pray together, and your day is over. I hope you make plans to stay with us today after church on January 7th. We have our leader huddle. Vita's cooking us some really yummy food, and we plan on having some great discussion around the book that we gave you back in the fall, called the Gospel Centered Kids Ministry. If you don't have your book, or you haven't read it in a while, no worries. We have a video. We're going to refresh your memory on what we're talking about. Because you're in ministry with us real regularly, you'll be able to talk about this anyway. But I would love to have you all there so that we can refresh and renew and encourage each other. Love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.